Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. I did the opposite today of what I normally do, which is that I recorded the Russian one first, and now I'm going to record the English one. It's pretty early in the morning here. I'm just about to start working, and I kind of want to get this over with today so that I can focus more on working, and that's the plan, because it's getting towards the end of the week, and I have some stuff I actually really need to finish, and I need to try to focus, even though it's hard sometimes. Okay, so I want to talk about something that's maybe a little bit controversial here, which is the whole family values thing, because this is very interesting because this can quickly get into like a whole Republican versus Democrat debate in the US, which I find kind of strange because obviously everybody comes from a family, so I'm confused about why family values, get a certain partisan lead on them, but whatever. I'm not into politics like I often say, but it's just like interesting to me that this topic is probably going to be very politically perceived by people who watch this who are in the US. Which, again, is not most of my viewing audience, however, it is a fraction of it. So, the reason why I was inspired to talk about this today, aside from the fact that it's in my laundry list of things that I want to talk about, is because I've had the return of a lot of people being like, on the Russian side of my channel, you need to stop worrying about housing and money and just worry about, getting married and having kids. Which, I kind of responded to that a little bit in the Russian video today, and I explained that I do not believe that the most important thing in life is getting married and having kids. I believe the most important thing in life is having a good relationship with yourself and knowing that you're a good person and that you're doing what you need to do to feel that way about yourself. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having those things as goals. It's just the way I've always felt about that is that it's one of these things where you have very little control over when exactly that's going to happen for you in your life. I mean, aside from I've seen those different stories about how people are like, I decided that I wanted to have a kid and I wanted to find Mr. Right, so I went online serial dating until I found the guy. And like, I've seen a lot of stories like that, and that's cool. Like, I respect the grind almost, like that these people are like, this is what I want, this is what I'm gonna get. Like, I seriously respect that because like I can relate to feeling that way about a lot of things. But I just think it's very interesting how somebody's value almost from a Russian cultural perspective as a woman. And again, it's like I have to keep in mind, and I, say this to myself all the time. It's like I need to keep in mind that probably a lot of the people watching my channel who are making these weird comments are a bunch of incels anyway who are just angry and then project that onto me. So like there is that. But at the same time, this is a very wide cultural phenomenon that is not just happening to me on the YouTube channel. In fact, when I was living in Kyrgyzstan, and I was a lot younger then, I was like early 20s, and I was like 21, and I remember somebody asking me like, so are you getting ready to get married? I'm like, to who, myself? Like how? Like how's that just gonna happen? Like you snap your fingers and you get married? Like no. I also can't snap, by the way. It's like a fun fact about me. It's like a fake snap because I use the wrong fingers. You're supposed to use these two. I use these. Don't ask me why. I have no idea what's wrong with me. But anyway, but yes, I don't think that's how that works. So then I would also have the taxi drivers who are very like nosy and are like, like your accent is weird, where are you from, that kind of stuff. But then they're like, are you married, do you have children? And it's like, I wasn't even 25 yet, and I've heard 25 is like the age by which if you're not married and don't have kids, like, oh, that's not good, like you're already a grandma at that point. And I left Kyrgyzstan when I was 24, so I got out of there right in time. And I haven't been to Kyrgyzstan since I was 26, and now I'm 29, so yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I'm at this point where I'm, like, kind of afraid to show up in some of those countries without a husband, because I just don't feel like listening to people. And, like, that sounds ridiculous, I know it does, but, like, I'm just trying to explain that's how much of a cultural phenomenon it is in these places. And I'm not saying that there aren't people who don't abide by that norm, but maybe me as like a more people pleaser kind of person, the whole thing makes me uncomfortable. Okay, so one of the things I think is hard, and like very, very honestly, is like maybe I'm almost like more like Hispanic or Italian in this way, but I was super like, was not wanting to move out of the house before I was going to get married. And so this is kind of the thing is it's like, oh, you need to be out of the house before like 30. And I'm like, well, crap, I didn't get married by 30. And like, this is something that like, honestly, like does kind of drive me insane, because it's not even just from like I wanted to be married by 30 thing, which is like, that is true. But it's just too expensive. Like that's really what it is that I don't like about it, is that I don't have dual income. Even though like my salary is decent-ish and could be the salary of two people, but still, even though I complain about it a lot, I don't know how people, like, honestly, who make less than me survive. They kind of don't. That's my point. That was the point of a lot of these videos. That was my alarm clock to wake up. One moment. All right, we're all good with that. So one of the other things I talked about is I'm like, in reality, you people don't know if I'm married or not married. You don't know if I have kids or don't have kids. I mean, like, it's unlikely, right? Because I, like, move around a lot and travel, and that usually doesn't lend itself to family life. But I'm also, like, the majority of people viewing my channel are men who are, like, 30 or 40. So I have a suspicion that a lot of these men are, like, riding this weird fantasy of, like, oh, this, like, perfect single woman who is ready to take me, and, like... Okay, yes, interesting. I'm not saying this is really what's going on, but I suspect it sometimes. And I always think about, like, if I were to make this channel about, like, you know, like, cleaning and, like, being a housewife and all these things that people think that I should be, what would the appeal be? Like, or if it's like, oh, I'm going to talk to you about, like, how I raise my kids. Like, I feel like my demographic is going to completely switch to women and away from men. So as much as it's, like, this is your, like, primary goal in life is to get married and have kids, if that's what I was putting out on this channel, would it be interesting to people and would people watch it? I don't know, maybe. I mean, there are a lot of successful, like, housewife influencer people. Or if I did more of a, I'm a working mom and I do everything at once, which people don't like that because they really get jealous of that. But I wonder, could that be appealing? Like, I don't know, right? Like, I was talking to my brother's girlfriend yesterday, and we were talking about YouTube, like, being my hobby, and I was like, well, is it really a hobby if I make money off of it? And she's like, well, that depends. Did you start it with the intention to make money? And I was like, yeah, I just didn't know it would be as successful as it would be. And why is it successful? Part of it is, yes, Finnish people like to know what Americans think about Finland, which is, like, part of my channel, but really the bigger niche is that I'm American and I speak Russian, right? So this is, like, very unique, and that, like, draws people in because it's distinct and interesting. I don't really know what's so distinct and interesting about I got married and I have kids. That's, like, something anybody could do. I travel the world's a little bit more interesting. I feel like people live vicariously through that because it's something that's not accessible to a lot of people, and as I talk about a lot here, it's probably something that I'm going to lose access to pretty soon, as soon as I need to move out, because that's just how the finances are going to be, and I don't believe in being in debt. So there is that. And then I'm going to retroactively talk about all my trips, and, like, here are the pictures, and here was my impressions, and then, you know, that's kind of my plan for when I have to, like, fully stop traveling, because that full stop is not coming until April. Literally April, when I have to move out. Except for my work trips, because obviously I don't pay for those. Okay. So, going back to this family values concept, so I think one of the hard things, too, is in Western society, like, I see people get married, but I don't see a lot of people having kids, because people are like, oh, well, we can't afford kids. And I remember one friend saying to me, like, poor people are going to have kids, and they're just going to make it work, versus, like, you know, more affluent people, a lot of times, they think they need to have everything, like, kind of perfect before they're going to give birth to kids. And this is something I find really concerning, and as somebody who is, like, a religious person or spiritual or whatever the heck you want to call it, it's like, I always do, because my mom said this to me recently, I think about this, where it's like, you know, people will not have natural affection, like the Bible foretells that, and I just think about, like, the idea of not wanting children to me is, like, the biggest indicator of that, and, like, that is something that concerns me as somebody who has wanted kids for the last 10 years, but has simply understood I've not been in the situation to, like, you know, do that, because obviously, you know, what I do is not conducive towards that. But I always feel like better to do all the crazy stuff first, and then you can go to the stable thing later, because it's harder to do that in the opposite order. Not impossible, but way harder. So it's really hard because when we get into, like, I do see a lot of things pop up on my YouTube where it's like, feminism is a lie, and, like, there's sort of this revival with the whole trad wife thing, and I did watch a very well done YouTube video. Who was this by? I forget, some girl, but it was so well done. And, kind of going over the, like, women influencers who are trad wives trying to make their lives look really great. But if you think about, like, all the women's rights that had to be fought for, and then we're kind of like throwing this away on the trad wife thing, like, that gets to be really hard. And this is where I feel like it just comes down to, it's an individual decision that needs to be respected, because what may work for me may not work for the next person. So jokingly, I'm like, I love doing laundry and I love cooking and I love cleaning. Like, I would be a great trad wife, but at the same time, I have worked so hard to, like, have a career and have an education. And even though I still feel like it's, like, not quite where I want to be and it's not enough sometimes, it's still better than nothing. Maybe that's kind of how I feel. And it's like, we're not going to get around the fact that, like, women do make less money than men. A lot of this has to do with maternity leave. This is not true in the Nordic countries. There's actually a whole Netflix thing on this. I was talking to my dad about this yesterday, because he's like, women have all the same opportunities as men. I'm like, we like to think that, and it appears that way, but that's not actually the case. Like, and that's the thing that really sucks. And I try to ignore this, right? Like, I remember one friend saying to me, like, women always get the short end of the stick. And, like, I hate thinking like that, really, because it's negative, and it's like, I'm a woman and there's nothing that I can do to change the fact that I'm a woman. Well, that's not true, obviously, because how things are today. But, like, I'm not really interested in that. I want to naturally be whatever sex I am, right? Like, I'm not into the gender dysphoria thing myself. So, although, like, I have actually always wanted to be a guy. Like, I'm not gonna lie about that. Why? Like, stupid reasons. Like, I don't have to shave my legs, and I don't have to wear makeup, and I don't have to try to, like, look nice. And I would be stronger. Like, I could be jacked. Like, you put on muscle so much more easily as a guy. And, like, people don't, like, look at your body the same way if you're a guy. Like, I just feel like as a woman, like, people are really into looking at your body, and that freaks me out. Like, I don't like it. Ugh. It especially sucks when you're young and, like, 15, and then your body starts changing and you're still mentally not, like, okay enough yet with that, and it's like you get a lot of attention and it's, like, overwhelming. That's how my life went. But anyway, ugh, like, PTSD just thinking about it. All right, but whatever. So yes, I think that, like, traditional values have a place. I do think about, like, and I struggled a lot with this, with, like, childcare versus, staying at home for however long to watch the kids. And I really love how, like, in Finland, they'll hold your job for, like, 2 or 3 years as a woman, like, by the time that you have a kid. Like, I think that's super cool. And, when I was working at NASA, I was young. Like, I was, like, 21 to 23. I was young, yeah. This is how I think, honestly. And I used to go around and ask, like, all the women, like, who were older than me. I was like, what'd you do when you had a kid? Like, when you gave birth, and, like, how long were you out? And, like, when did you come back? And, like, what'd you do? Like, did they hold your job? Like, because this was something, like, I knew that at some point, like, I wanted to consider and, like, figure out how to navigate. And it was actually very cool, because I had these, like, my NASA couple friends, as I call them. They're, like, this, like, little Hispanic couple I have. They're, like, literally probably my favorite couple in the entire world, no joke. The woman is literally my idol, like, role model, there we go, that's the word. Just because, like, and this is the thing, I want to make another video about why I think jealousy is stupid, but it's like, I'm sure a lot of people are jealous of her, but I look at her and I just admire her, and, like, she inspires me to be better. And I never understand why people can't just look at people who have things that they don't and think about that. Like, she works at NASA, she's an engineer, like, she dresses really cool, she's very outgoing, like, she's a lot of things that, like, I'm not, to be honest, but, like, she's just so, like, nice, and, like, she has so much energy, like, she does so many things, she teaches dance lessons, like, she has 2 kids now, and the kids are super cute. But back when I first met her, she had just gotten married and she didn't have kids. And it was really cool for me to see, because by the time I was interning at NASA, and I actually lived with them for, like, a couple months, like, seeing what they did once they had a baby, which was that they were able to kind of, like, split their leave time so that each parent could be home with the kids. They're both involved in, like, raising the kid. But then by the time it was time for her to go back to work, they found, like, some sort of Spanish speaking nanny, because making sure that kids spoke Spanish was very important. And I thought that was really cool. And I remember I sat down, I was, like, talking to the husband one day, and he's like, we have enough money, like, she doesn't have to keep working, but like she wants to. And I like understood that, okay? Because again, it's like you work so hard to get to a certain level and you like interacting with adults, and it's like, being with a kid all the time can be like hard emotionally, I think. Even though I've always thought about like, oh, I could cook and I could clean and I could, like, trust me, I'm pretty good at being unemployed. I did it during COVID, but it's just sort of like, it doesn't feel like it's helping me get to my like longer term goals. So that's why, like, I'm saying, like, this discussion is so hard and it's so nuanced, and it really depends on the individual and what the individual's goals are. Like, I know some people think like marriage, kids, that's like the end all be all, like that's the goal in life, and that's cool, and like everybody's entitled to have that opinion. It's just like, it's so hard for me because I feel so split between it. It's like, yes, like those things are important to me, but they're also not like more important to me than continuing to have a career as a woman, or like, reaching like academic, or not even academic, but like secular goals, right? Like, this is just like how I felt my entire life. And I always joke, like, my role model growing up was a man, it wasn't a woman, it was my dad. So I just feel like, I want to work and I want to provide, and I've like always felt like that, which is like a not very womanly thing, right? The womanly thing is like, I want to sit around and have somebody take care of me. Like, I want somebody who's physically stronger than me and can protect me. Like, for some reason I have that idea, even though, we don't, that doesn't really make sense as to why that's necessary. But I think about that. I don't think about like, oh, I want somebody to pay for me. I just don't want somebody to make my life harder and be like a financial burden, or be like my second child or third child, whatever, however many children I have. Because I have dated people where I felt like, this is like, this literally being with this person, like marrying this person, would make my life harder, and I don't want it. So yeah, like somebody who's self-sufficient, and again, that's why I feel like having the relationship with yourself that's a good one is much more important than being like, I'm gonna like go into a marriage and have kids and it's gonna like complete my life. Like, it's not. Like, if you're not happy now, you're not gonna be happy in that sense. And I don't think that I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. Like, I have one friend in Finland who, she's a woman, and yes, it's a female friend, and she has 2 kids, and she's younger than me. She's like 25 or 26, and she's already got 2 kids, and it's pretty, she explained to me, like, when I first met her, like, what I'm doing is really uncommon, because a lot of Finnish women are very focused on their careers, and they don't like to have kids young. And like, honestly, I respected it, because that's like what was important to her, and she like went and accomplished that. She was like, literally met her husband on Instagram, and was like, I was just like looking for people. I decided like I wanted to have kids, and in order to like have kids, I needed to find a husband. And I first talked to the husband about whether he wanted to have kids, and then like, yeah, that was it. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But I think that for me, it's like, because I was talking to her about, I'm like, how do people even find people, man? But like, I think there's sort of this assumption maybe that like I travel and that's not what I want, when in reality, like, it's not that that's not what I want, it's just that it's I'm not willing to compromise certain things to get it, right? Like, I'm not willing to take on a second child. Like, that's all. Second child, first child, whatever, a child, another child. I guess because I just think of, if you end up having kids with the person, it's like, oh, it's a lot of work. I don't know. And it's like, yeah, like sometimes it's like I've met people and it's like, okay, maybe they're fine, but this is not somebody I would want to reproduce with. Like, that's rude. But like, honestly, like, this is like autistic, right? I'm just like, who do I want to reproduce with? Like, that's what's important to me. Like, it sounds very eugenics. Ugh, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's like, probably kind of is. It's bad. It's how I think sometimes, man. I don't know. To me, because I think actually one of the things that's always been very interesting to me about relationships is people, because this girl in particular, I was talking to her recently, and she's like, well, what are you looking for? I was like, honestly, just somebody who's not disgusting, but who's like very smart. So it's like very weird to me that people kind of in relationships go for like looks, and I was like, no, like, I've never gone for looks. It's just like, I need the person to be smarter than me. I don't think I'm that smart. People think I'm very smart, but I am smart enough that I get bored with most people, so the smart thing is like really most important to me. And apparently, I remember when I was young, like, I said something like, when somebody else asked me, I'm like, oh, I just need somebody who's smart. My dad's like, you can't say that to people because it's rude or it's like arrogant or something. I was like, how? That's just like self-aware that like, that's what I know I need. Otherwise, again, I'd rather be by myself. Like, if I have to like talk to and entertain somebody again, like they're a child, because they're like not on the appropriate level that I need to want to have a conversation with them, that's just being honest with myself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But whatever, people can think whatever they want. They can think I'm stuck up, they can think I'm rude, but again, what is most important? What I think about myself, okay? This is what I'm getting at. So I don't know. Like, I think it's a really hard debate. I do personally find it distressing that people like don't want to have kids these days. I had actually recently gotten into this like little YouTube spiral of like women who are having kids just like, oh wait, no, this is what it was. Okay, this is funny. um, my friend watches 90 Day Fiance. I don't really watch anything except occasionally YouTube at this point because I'm now a YouTuber, right? But I try to get inspiration maybe. But there was one I was watching about like this guy who's like, because we were watching something about why Gen Z's not having kids anymore. This is what I was watching. And then she was watching 90 Day Fiance, and there's like the sperm donor guy who like travels the world to like voluntarily give his sperm to people so that they can be pregnant, they can, be single moms if they want. And like that is like a growing trend where it's like women like don't meet somebody and then they're like, oh, I want a kid and I'm getting old, so I'm just gonna like have a kid. And I can only imagine from like a Russian perspective, like this is probably so like not okay, but from a Western perspective, people are like, maybe it's a little bit weird, but people are like, it's fine. Actually, I would be curious to see what people's opinions are here about whether that's actually fine or not. Hold on, I'm gonna save this real quick. I'm so paranoid that I'm going to have the best video ever and then it's just going to get deleted. But yeah, so basically what's happening is people are not wanting to have kids, and the people who are wanting to have kids seem to be these random singular people who are like, I'm going to have a kid because I decided this is like my purpose in life and I didn't find somebody, so I'm going to have a kid. And like, this is all, I'm not going to lie, this is pretty confusing, and I do feel like this, because I remember I was saying something to a couple of my friends who are pretty into being Democrats, and I was like, yeah, I just feel like there's like a breakdown of, the family unit, and then they're like, you sound like Fox News, and I was like, I don't even watch the news, okay, like I don't know what I sound like, but it's just like general observations and general trends. And again, it's like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting it or not wanting it, but I think that people's decisions for one or the other just should be respected. And I think right now it's kind of hard, right? Because we're moving away from, like, I know it's like, okay, coming from like a more religious background, it's very like, everything's accepted and that's bad. And I'm like, I don't necessarily think it's bad, because when you get down to anything religious, it's like, just treat people kindly, okay? There's one thing you're supposed to do, and it's be nice to other people. It does not matter what they do. It does not matter if it is not in line with what you think that they should be doing, because you are not God and you cannot judge them, okay? Let's remember that, because somehow people do not remember this. This is literally, I will preach about this. Stop judging people, man. Do you know how many times it's in the Bible? Oh, it just makes me angry. I don't know. This is like the righteous justice thing or something. I don't know, man. The social justice warrior, I gotta be careful with that. I don't want to become that. I'm gonna be honest. Like, whatever. People can judge if they want to judge. I should stop judging people for judging. See, that's another thing. But people are gonna start making very different decisions, and it is not the decision of another person to make the decision for another person when that person wants to do something different. And this is one of the things that I think about a lot with, like, if I want to raise kids, I just want to put no expectations on them. Besides, act kindly. Like, there are certain things with now my sister's becoming a teenager, she's not always nice. And I'm like, you better watch it, because if you're not nice, people aren't going to like you, and it's going to make your life more difficult. So just be nice to other people. It's all I have to say. And it's like the golden rule. If somebody was going to say something to you, if you're thinking about saying something to somebody and you know that if somebody said to you, you'd be upset, don't say it. Like, don't say it, okay? Like, my dad was saying, like, you should feel comfortable telling, both me and your stepmom how you feel about things. And I'm like, no, because I'm not going to tell you what I really think, because that's rude. I'm not going to say things like, I don't like how you dress, or I don't like how you do this, or I don't like how you parent your child. Like, no, that's not my business. That's inappropriate. Don't do that. I don't know, man. So yeah, so I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty hard sometimes, like, emotionally for me, dealing with the Russian side of the comments where it's like your purpose in life has not been fulfilled yet because you don't have children and you're not married. And it's like, probably the reason why some of that hurts is because there is a part of me that really wishes that those things could happen for me. But meanwhile, there's also a part of me that's seen a lot and knows that that is not what's going to make me happy. Okay? It can add happiness, but happiness comes from within. I like the quote, happiness is an inside job. So really what matters is that I get to a point where I like what's going on. Got people on the Russian side being like, you're psychologically troubled. Okay, I'm not going to deny that. I probably am. Probably a lot of people are these days. Look at the way the world is. I don't know what to say. But for me, I know, like, one of the best things in life is, like, setting goals and achieving them. And, like, Right now, one of my goals is getting a stable housing situation. And then maybe once I have that, maybe I'll have sort of the emotional bandwidth to go out into the universe and manifest the marriage and children thing. But for now, nothing is going to change the fact that I'm getting kicked out of my house and that I have to figure out a place to go and that it did not happen in the timeline I wanted it to. And I need to accept that and move on. And life always goes on. I'm going to leave that for today. I'm going to start working because I need to. I'm also getting hungry, so I should take care of that. Alright, so until my next video, I kind of low-key want to take a break because I'm getting tired, but we'll see if that happens or not. Alright, so until next time, bye!